Chapter 12 The Chamber of Old Time. Monique stomped across the black glass floor, a stunned smile on her lips. Everyone who had been brought below was alive. Maybe she could get her hopes up for a change. Not so loud, Kareen hissed. She clawed at her hair, her once red nails now black and broken. She sat upright on the floor and yet couldn't seem to stand. Black glass grasped up her clothes. We're not safe. Shadows crossed her face as two of Mimic's sister creatures slinked across the entrance. Now that they had led Monique here, it seemed no one was allowed to leave. One creature stretched her arm, pointing to one side of the room. Mimic raised hers, too. Monique followed her fingers and noticed a large lump that rested against a broken stone pillar. Sickle claws poked from enormous curled feet. The Grey Maiden. What's she doing here? Monique asked. She sleeps here, Corinne said. She chuckled hoarsely, her throat rumbling with gravel. Welcome to the Worm's garbage can, the Chamber of Old Time. Had someone mentioned that name before? Monique thought Lady might have too many titles and monikers now mixed into a dreamy syllable stew. Sorry, one second. Okay, this is live, so no editing. I'm back. Corinne craned her neck. Where'd your red cap go? Monique brushed a hand over her forehead, but couldn't hold it there. She wanted her red beanie back, anything to hide her upper face and help her look more like herself. There's hardly anyone to see her, but that didn't matter. She felt exposed as Corinne's gaze crawled over her from head to toe. Careful thoughts weighed so heavily in Corinne's expression that Monique could almost hear them. I thought you were a girl. You sound like a girl. How old are you really? You're a what? But Corinne didn't say any of those things. She deflated into her clothes. I wish I had time to know you better. You do. You will. Monique stepped closer and then stopped. Mimic no longer walked by her side. She looked to Monique and then Corinne and didn't move. Something was wrong. All Monique wanted right now was to throw her arms around Corinne's neck and help pull her out of this hellhole, but she should have been able to leave on her own power then. Monique slipped back to Mimic and stared at Corinne. What's wrong? Why can't you run? Because the Worms people want me to transform, to transcend. Corinne rolled up one jacket sleeve. Chunks of her arm seemed missing, and in their place spread the same black glass sinew that ate through stone and formed the chamber's walls. The same reflective infections spread over Corinne's feet, legs, and hips, forming stiff strands that chained her to the floor. I know what you're thinking, and yes, it's contagious. Old time is working wonders on me. Spend a while here and the universe can't be sure where you belong anymore. I thought you were dead. It blurted out quicker than Monique could stop it. You'll think right soon. Corinne scratched at the glass in her arm, making it squeak. Did her skin still itch underneath? She nodded toward Grey Maiden, whose heavy breath chugged in and out. If she catches you, she'll keep you. Hell won't suffer saints to reach for sinners. Monique rubbed at her aching shoulder and watched Mimic do the same out of the corner of her eye. Don't quit on me. Quitting isn't a crime. Corinne sank into her captive nest. We quit things all the time for our own good. I quit smoking, remember? Monique couldn't help a half giggle. Corinne was pulling the same bright side of life nonsense as Donna when moving out of Marigold and Cohen while Monique was healing after Dr. Sam, and Monique was falling for it. Cursed with affection for older women, it seemed. She thought some Freud type might analyze that to hell and back about her mother. She didn't care. You must have quit a bad relationship before, yes? Corinne asked. Sometimes you can't find the right thing unless you quit the wrong one. Isn't that what you did? Whoever anyone thought you were before, you quit it. I don't know your name, but I bet you don't call yourself what they used to call you. You quit that too, and now there's light in your eyes that wasn't there before, was it? I don't want to talk about this, Monique said. She couldn't help thinking about it. Leaving her parents' home hadn't been her choice, but she'd put her foot down and meant it. She was Monique, no matter who they thought she might be, but did quitting the past mean she should quit just anything? Donna, her life, the universe? She nodded toward Mimic and then the sister creatures on the walls. Maybe they know how to get you out? Ooh, Mimic said. I don't think they understand, Karen said. Our entire existence spawned from the afterbirth of their apocalypse. Why help us? Dark tears formed in her eyes, dotted with black glass and blood. Once there was a worm that dreamed it was a god. I wonder what kind of people they might have been, if not for them. They gave up their own future, beautiful or horrific, and instead built the great Pangea kingdoms to worship him. Then their kings refused to sacrifice a daughter as his bride, and doom came for them all. Old time seeps through that stab wound in the universe. It hasn't finished one death, and now it's started another. I think death is what happens when anyone meets a god. Monique realized her feet were inching towards Karen's nest. The room blurred in and out, its reflections dancing and fusing. I found Donna. They're going to make her the bride of the worm. Do you know the way to the throne room? Will it matter? Karen asked. No one below ground has been dismissed. So said our friend Lady. Monique clenched her teeth not to scream. Well, Lady's dead, and I'm sick of hearing that word. She glanced wide-eyed at the Gray Maiden's direction, but the monster was still asleep. Monique softened her voice. There has to be a way. The key is determinism. Sarah. I'm not quitting. That's not what I mean, you lovesick, stubborn girl. Karen sighed hard. Breathing seemed a challenge. It was around this equivalent year in old time that the old kings upset the world. For our world, it's been a 175 million year crawl since he reached back and smashed the supercontinent to get to this point again. But he doesn't have to do that. He's coming to a determined point in time and space whenever he's offered a bride and his people sing the song that pierces the universe. Is Donna the bride in that moment? If so, you'll fail and the worm will take her. If she isn't, maybe you'll rescue her and the worm cult will carry on searching until they find the true bride. We can't know the determined moment. It might be hundreds of years from now. Fate is a tapestry of impossible questions with unimaginable answers. Monique smiled over Karen. If it was fate, he would have had a bride on the first try. Black glass flecked Karen's lips. I'd like that. But what if the worm was always meant to test the old kings, have his godly tantrum and destroy their history so we could rise from the early mammals instead? The worm is absolute, but he's not picky about leaving ruin wherever he goes. No, I think he likes it. Donna acts like he's made an example of old time. Humans, stay in line or you'll end up like them. Two of Mimic's sister creatures crawled at the edge of Monique's sight, their gowns merging with shadow. The other three crept along the walls. They didn't belong, these creatures with bird-like legs, sickle claws, and wail cries. They wore clothes like humans, but made from what? Silkworm silk or some animal that had only existed in their dead timeline? He who cleaves time in two leaves a half-divided history. Karen pointed over her shoulder at a pillar in the back of the chamber. I found a king of their time here, the king of their broken throne, split and punished between timelines. Monique looked to the Gray Maiden again and kept her distance as she circled Karen. The one they love. Here? In a fashion. Love is a strong word. Monique crept toward the pillar, Mimic slinking beside her. This was the lair of the broken king who had brought the worm down on two histories, founder of the nightly ceremony, the seer who sounded so great in Bouchard's speech and Lady's rambling. But Donna was right. There was nothing to fear. The king of the broken throne didn't rule the underground. What remained was neither messiah nor demagogue. Deep in the chamber stood a shard of blasted wall where a standing body had long ago fused with stone. Sinewy black glass spread root-like from its every extremity. A fleshless skull turned upward with the snout frozen open in an eternal scream. The limbs bent backward, so overcome with glassy strands that Monique couldn't tell their exact shape. The abdomen was a petrified, broken sack. Something had been torn loose. Ooh, Mimic sang, her notes long and discordant. Monique didn't think guts alone had gone missing from the Broken King's middle. The king of the broken throne was a mother? She asked. I was surprised too, Karen said, but the great Pangea kingdoms have their own society, and the people upstairs make a habit of getting things wrong. We glued the word king to men. Their kind's equivalent must have spanned genders. She was a seer, after all, so she set the precedent. I wonder how many years her kingdoms lasted between the first coming and their end. Her shoulders slumped, the floor dragging at her. She was the first to meet the worm, and look what he did to her. Monique reached for the torn belly and then let her hand drop. Mimic did the same. To touch would not be right. She doomed old time. She doomed herself and her child. Corinne halfway turned, trying to face Monique. Every movement made her wince. According to the cult's myths, at the second coming of the worm, he demanded one of the old kings offer their daughter as bride. They didn't say no. They hesitated, each hoping one of the others would speak up first. The worm had expected them to jump at the chance, but they loved their daughters too much to let any of them become a vessel for the worm's offspring. In their moment's pause, he was already reaching back in time, but he looked to her, the seer who became king, who was with child, and thought she might promise her unborn daughter to him. How could she love someone she hadn't even met? And yet, she refused. Corinne pointed at the corner. She already loved her daughter too much. Her finger aimed at the sleeping gray maiden. The worm took her, Monique said. Revulsion surged up her insides. He shattered the seer's seat, king of the broken throne, and left her daughter to grow in an unwelcoming timeline. Corinne clicked her tongue as if admonishing a misbehaving student. How do you know all this? He told me. Corinne slumped deep into herself. She seemed not to want to look, but her head couldn't help turning to one side. I found who I was looking for, too. Monique glanced over, but didn't approach. The floor bulged into a jagged lump. She couldn't believe its glassy spines were once a scraggly beard of Professor Abraham Clark, now sharpened and hardened by old time. Corinne, I'm so sorry, Monique said. He was still alive when the Grey Maiden put me down here. He was raving. I gleaned what I could. He was desperate to live by then, his thoughts torn apart, our every physics theory disintegrated by dogma. Now, I'm the only one who understands. Leaning her head back, Corinne bared her throat as if ready for Monique to cut it. I wonder if I'll worship the worm by the end. The chamber's doorway cleared of shadows. Monique had apparently seen what the creatures meant for her to see, but now she didn't want to leave. They slinked along the walls, flesh against reflection. Ooh, Mimic asked. Monique reached for Mimic's face and felt beneath her hood. Her skin was cold and clammy. Soft spines coated her neck, what Monique imagined a hedgehog must have felt like when stroked head to tail. How did you get here? She asked. Ooh, Mimic reached for Monique's face and laid a cool hand against her cheek. Talons dug into her oily hair. I think they seeped from old times, same as the palace, Karen said, and old times seeped from the Broken King. This chamber seems an accident, huh? Maybe the worm meant things to turn out this way, maybe not. The machinations of wee small things are beneath his mighty gaze. We might scurry unimpeded, we might plot. Even the worm might make a mistake then. Monique lowered her hand from Mimic's face and stepped toward Karen. Her shoulders swayed too much suddenly, as if she had taken on the guilt of this room. But everyone's still afraid of him. Fear is a symptom. It happens when our old perspective breaks down. Karen stared hard into Monique's eyes. Sometimes we have to break down to see things in new ways. Did Abraham teach you that? I taught myself that, and now I am teaching you. Karen's chest heaved in and out. Old time was invading her organs and killing her, same as Abraham. Imagine synchronized wormholes across multiple star systems. The space circumvented by wormholes can only be a worm. Monique knelt beside the black glass nest. The chamber's wrong scent came strongest here, mixed with unwashed skin and beleaguered regret. What are you saying? She asked. A kind of vast celestial movement might twist gravity and flip magnetism. Karen raked her hair again. Patches of black glass glistened across her scalp. A black hole is so dense that it can crush time itself. Why can't a wormhole? And so, Abraham and I theorize that some cosmic cataclysm beyond our understanding once tore through multiple wormholes and spilled over Earth, striking present and past, shifting tectonic plates. The planet's history was forever altered. Old time is the seepage from a parallel present. What we've discovered is not the will of any deity, but the echoes of a chronologically erased culture. Its pieces leaking into our universe. They paid fealty to that cosmic movement, but the cosmos has no mercy. Do you know about the people in the throne room? Monique asked, desperate. They're dead and alive. If there is such a thing as a soul, why wouldn't it be governed by the same natural forces as everything else? They sink into the gravity well. That's what we theorize anyway. An uneven smile split Karen's face. I bet Abraham told him as much once he heard out their mythology. He was never tricky like you and me. No one like that, I'm sure. So they let the Grey Maiden drag him down here, all for a little starlight. Moni couldn't be certain that Karen was right, but she didn't know enough about the stars to say she was wrong. All these people with their songs and murder might well be an imagined god, a cosmic power, same as gravity or a supernova, but no consciousness, no will. Only an empty place. Whether he was a god or gravity, this place, these people had taken those who were desperate or brilliant or both and turned them into single-minded zealots. They had done the same to Donna and Abraham. Karen saw it in her future. They would do it to Monique, too, given the chance. She turned to Mimic, just one bystander beneath celestial calamity. I wish I knew what you knew. Mimic said nothing. I bet you'd tell me it'll be okay. You tell me no one should worship this power, but really, I'm just pinning my thoughts to you like my parents did to me because I was a quiet kid. You can't tell me anything, and that isn't any fair. To entirely erase old time would have been kinder than casting its fragments to wander lost in an alien world. Time that never was, sliced from its source by the worm's carelessness. There shouldn't have been a cataclysm that left echoes caught here forever repeating. The underground was not a city, but a mass grave, its ghosts forever buried. Its ghouls, so desperate for a place to belong that they put their hopes of salvation in a worm of uncaring stars as eternal and thoughtless as the empty space between them. Donna was wrong. There was everything to fear. I have to help Donna, Monique said. She reached for Corinne, but I can't leave you like this. I can't follow. Corinne's legs fidgeted, caught in a black glass teeth. Seems the people upstairs were right about one thing. The worm's will is absolute. The worm makes mistakes. If old time was shoved through because he couldn't care less, I can grab Donna by the arm and yank her out, dismissed or not. And I can rip you out of this too. Monique offered an open hand. Don't. Corinne lowered her head to the floor. This shit will spread into you and you'll die like Abraham. You'll never save Donna. Wouldn't that be too much like quitting for you? Monique's thoughts rolled beneath the weight of everything Corinne had said about stars, wormholes, and gravity, about quitting and retaking and transcending. The only word to come out was sorry. We tear the universe apart for the people we love, but sometimes we forget to love ourselves. It's not your fault, kid. Monique. Corinne forced a smirk. You tear them down, Monique. Run with Donna and break everything in your way. Monique didn't leave yet. She drifted toward the slab where the Broken King seeped not a dead history, but physical sorrow. No one escaped the worm, it seemed. A survivor, smarter than most. Donna had accepted that and allowed the worm to break her. Now she flowed with his will. But Monique didn't. She reached for the Broken King's skull and ran her fingers down a glassy face. Black teeth reflected her fingertips. Sorry, she said again. She thought of her scars, small to the scars of old time, and wondered if the Broken King was like her, afflicted with anatomy that didn't match the truth inside. There was no knowing. The culture of the great Pangea kingdoms couldn't be explained by an altar to its loss. Ooh, Mimic added. It wasn't much of a eulogy for a dead mother, a broken king, or a wronged universe, but it would have to do. As Monique stepped back from the pillar, her heel faltered on an uneven surface, some obstruction. She felt a familiar click and felt a sharp blade jab through the sole of her shoe into the pad of her foot. A scream tore up her throat before she could snap her lips shut. Talons scraped black glass. Something large gasped, awakening. What had she stepped on? She lifted her leg and her fingertips crossed a plastic handle and trigger, her own switchblade. The Grey Maiden had taken it after all, curious as her fellow refugees. Blood coated Monique's fingertips. A shadowy bulk rose against a separate pillar, and her sickle claws tapped the floor. Ooh, the questioning whale song came deep and tired. The Grey Maiden was still groggy. Monique spun around, stumbled, fell on the glass, and scrabbled up. A pointless accident, easily avoided. The Grey Maiden was moving. There would be no evading her this time. Monique was bleeding everywhere. Mimic no longer walked by her side. She had dipped into the shadows with her sister creatures. They might have been afraid of the Grey Maiden too, so much larger than the rest of them. Monique limped past Corinne and toward the chamber doorway. Heavy steps thudded behind her. Click, click. Don't hurt her, Corinne shouted. She clutched at the Grey Maiden's cloak and tangled it in her arms. Black glass thorns snagged the fabric. Leave her alone. She's just a kid. Her eyes flashed wide at Monique. Run like hell. Monique twisted on her good foot and stumbled out of the chamber. A wail rang across black glass, so harsh that it might pierce the universe. It throttled her nerves, but she couldn't let it stop her from leaving, or else Corinne would die for nothing. She had to get back across the bridge, back to Donna.